Let's give a nice warm welcome to Riz.
How you doing? Evening, everyone. I decided to wear some brand new shoes today, and I've already got a cramp in my right foot, so not a very good start, really. Can you give me a show of hands if you've ever experienced failure in your life of some sort? Okay, not as many as I thought. Put your hands up if you've never experienced failure in your life. What's your secret, Dave?
Don't call it failure.
We'll get to that in a bit. Guys, I want to take you back to a time in my life which, for me, I experienced one of my biggest failures, and it was back in 2007. It was relatively new in my fitness journey, and I decided to undertake a new challenge. So naturally, like a lot of new people, I decided to do the London Marathon. Now for me, the most that I ever ran was about 6 miles, and I wanted to do it for a charity and do it for a good cause. So the charity that I chose was called Sense. Now Sense were a charity that specialised in looking after deaf and blind children, and the more that I began to learn about them, the more I began to become a lot more passionate about it. So I started my training. Slowly but surely I built up my mileage. I started reading about marathon runners. I started thinking like a marathon runner, and I started getting to the level where I started running about 10 to 12 miles. Then the inevitable happened. So as you can assume, I injured myself, and I started developing pain in my knee. Now being a typical guy, I just ignored it and carried on. The pain got worse, and it got to a stage where I couldn't carry on anymore. So I decided to go and see a physio. Now the physio who I went to see, she checked me out, and she said to me, "Your feet are flat and wide, you've got one leg which is slightly longer than the other, you're not really made for marathon running." Who knew? She said on top of that, you've developed bursitis, which is inflammation of the bursa. So she suggested that I drop out of the race. She told me this is not something that I can do. I wasn't really sure what to do at this stage, because it became a big deal for me. But given what the physio told me and the advice that she gave to me, I just decided to drop out. So I dropped out. This was a big deal for me, guys, because I felt like a huge failure at this point. I felt like I let myself down. I felt like I let the people who sponsored me down. But most importantly, I felt like I let the children down. And I felt like I needed to do more. I felt ashamed of myself. I spent the next month or so wallowing in self-pity. But I think the biggest thing is I walked away from that thinking, this is not something that I'll be able to do. Richard Branson once said, "Do not be embarrassed by your failures, learn from them and start again." And several months after that experience, I had this nagging feeling within me that I can't just leave it at this. And this is the funny thing about failure, guys. It's a two-sided coin, because on one hand, you might go through a period of self-pity. You might go through that period where you feel sorry for yourself, but at the same time, it creates this burning desire within you, a desire to want to beat your former challenge, a desire to do better than what you did before. And that was lit inside of me, and I decided I'm going to do something about it. So I decided to seek out help. I spoke to my friends, I spoke to my families. My friend joined me, we started training together, we got physio sessions together. We started training every week. We got to about 10, 15 miles. And then when race day came, we overslept. And this is actually a true story, guys. It was a last minute dash to the starting line. So much so that we actually did our stretches on the underground. Not something that I'd recommend. But the actual race was an amazing experience. I'm not going to say how long it took me. It didn't take me a sub 2 hours, that's for sure. But I did manage to complete it in the end. And when I did finally cross that finishing line, it was just an amazing and exhilarating experience. Guys, I asked you at the start whether you've ever failed at anything in your life. And the truth is, you've never failed at anything in your life. These are only just mere attempts. You'll have several different types of events in your life and attempts, and you'll try again. J.K. Rowling, her first book on Harry Potter was rejected 12 times. Stephen King's first book, Carrie, was rejected 30 times. Eminem, Jim Carrey, they were booed off stage first time. Oprah, she was deemed unfit for TV. She was sacked from her first job. Walt Disney, sacked from his first newspaper, deemed lacking imagination. Let me ask you a question. What would have happened if any of these guys accepted these failures? What would have happened if they just accepted that as it was? I wouldn't own a Harry Potter wand. Guys, let me ask you a question. Why is it that when you're learning to ride a bike and you fall down constantly all the time, again and again and again, why is it that you don't think to yourself, I'm a failure, I can't do this? Why is it that when you learn how to drive and it took you forever to get that biting point, that you just continue to struggle and struggle until you got it? You never stopped for a moment and said, I can't do this. And even when you were a toddler and you were learning how to walk, you kept at it, you kept at it. Why is that? It's because of the mindset. It's because of the expectation of people around you, that everyone around you could do it. So you had that self-belief that you could do it as well. So why don't you apply that now? Why don't you apply it to all of the goals that you want to achieve? It's the same thing. I don't know if you ever heard of this man. He's called Hannibal. And I'm not talking about the guy from Silence of the Lambs. He was one of the greatest military minds of all time. And in 218 BC, he did something which completely shook the Roman Empire at that time. And there's a famous quote that is attributed to him. If I do not find a way, I will make one. Do you know what he did in 218 BC? He led an army which included 20,000 soldiers, which included 37 war elephants, and he took that army and he crossed the Pyrenees, and he didn't just stop there. He went on and he crossed the Alps, and he took the wars to the Roman Empire. He invaded Italy, and he went on to try to march on to Rome. It wasn't an easy task. Do you not think that Hannibal thought to himself, what if I fail? Do you not think he thought to himself, what if we don't make it? Of course they did. Of course he did. Armies tried to attack them on the route. The harsh environment of the cold weather and the terrain, they had to endure all of that. And once they finally made it onto Italian soil, they had to start to fight again. Guys, we need to be like Hannibal. We need to fight the obstacles that are thrown against us when we're trying to reach our goals. We need to endure the circumstances that we're working in and the environment. And once we've survived all of that, we need to be ready to fight again. And as Napoleon Hill once said, the greatest success, most great people achieve their greatest steps, one step beyond their greatest failure. Now, I'd like all of you to stand up and repeat after me. I have never failed in my life. I have only tried. And I will try again. And I will never I'll never allow anyone to tell me I can't do something. Thank you.